There seems to be a disconnect on a couple of major political issues that the media is glossing over and not holding Trump to account on. Number one, his tariffs plan makes no economic sense. And number two, that DOGE is a scam.
We started looking closely at USAID because they were completely violating the president's executive orders to suspend foreign aid, what's called foreign aid, but in our view is a lot of corruption.
Let's start with the first one, tariffs. 25% on Mexico and Canada, our closest trading partners and military allies, and then an assortment of tariffs on the rest of our trading partners around the world, of a percentage usually made up by Trump in a random moment. No data, no economists, no projections, just Trump's instinct. And we all know his instinct for business is world famous. Firstly, tariffs are Trump's only method for bringing revenue into the Treasury. He literally doesn't have another plan. And the reason that he's making such a big deal about it is because he has to give the impression that it is going to work, so that he can reduce corporation tax for the wealthiest individuals and businesses, which is where the majority of tax revenue should come from. So by letting his wealthy friends off the hook to the tune of trillions of dollars in tax receipts, he needs to come up with a marketing plan to offset that insane amount of corruption. He must know that tariffs are paid for by consumers and importers rather than the exporters. It's not rocket science, but by convincing himself and everyone else that Mexico is paying for it or Canada is paying for it, takes the heat off the fact that he is, once again, rinsing working people and benefiting only the very wealthy. Arguably, he hates working people. He hates his base. He wouldn't be seen dead with these people. He prefers Jeffrey Epstein and that kind of ilk. Whenever MAGA supporters try to get close to him, he literally runs the other way. So, like a classic robber baron, Trump is executing this bait and switch designed to throw people off the scent of his real plan, which is to destroy the US economy. But by then it'll be too late to save the people when everything crashes. The wealthiest will be in a position to buy back stocks and commodities at a much lower rate, and so the cycle of enriching themselves begins again. Not a single legitimate economist can explain how other countries will be paying the tariffs. Trump can't explain it. He always just changes the subject and says, it'll be fine, we're going to be so rich. He's actually talking about himself. He says we, he means me. The tariffs during his last presidency brought in very little revenue. The tech billionaires don't actually believe in federal taxation. So the plan long-term is to abolish it completely, starting with these huge tax cuts for the wealthy, not for the working poor. These tariffs effectively act as taxes on US imports, with much of the cost passed on to American consumers in the form of higher prices. And it's important to note that while tariff revenues did increase marginally during Trump's first presidency, they remained a relatively small fraction of overall federal revenue and had limited impact on reducing the national debt. Additionally, studies have shown that tariffs led to increased consumer prices and had adverse effects on sectors of the US economy. And let's not ignore the diplomatic cost of tariffs, which has just pissed off our allies no end. And Justin Trudeau in Canada just said there is literally no reason for these tariffs. Trump lies about punishing Canada for bringing fentanyl across the border. It's a total lie. There is no data and no evidence to back that up.
Donald, you're a very smart guy. This is a very dumb thing to do.
Now, secondly, let's talk about DOGE, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency headed by Elon Musk, who isn't really heading it, except he is. An ideological department, in reality, cutting programs that Trump and Musk and MAGA Republicans don't believe in. It's got nothing to do with efficiency or waste. The government was already extremely efficient. The reason we had 20 inspectors general was to ensure the efficiency of government contracts and to prevent waste and fraud and abuse in all government business, including a whistleblower department to enable federal workers to blow the whistle where they found impropriety. In his first week in office, Trump fired all the inspectors general. I mean, if he was serious about finding efficiency or inefficiency in the federal government, he would have kept these department heads and given them even more scope. So what's the real reason for getting rid of them? Well, Trump's history of criminal activity, corruption, and fraud means that any oversight could potentially expose him for the stealing and the manipulating and the colluding to enrich himself and his wealthy friends. If you can't see that Trump is stealing from you, then you're not looking closely enough. Trump's surrogates go around claiming that the national debt is too high and the deficit is too big, and that's why these cuts are essential. Well, they're also lying to you. Remember, it was Trump that exploded the debt by $8 trillion during his first term. Republicans don't care about debt. Every Republican president has increased the debt. It's only Democrats that have reduced it, during which time Democrats invest in infrastructure and public services, and Republicans come along and shut it all down. Or take the credit for it, whichever requires least effort. So, DOGE has cut essential services and programs that people all around the world rely on. They are paid for by tax revenues, which Trump is reducing. So, if there's no income tax coming in, how does the government operate? Exactly. It doesn't. This is the slow and painful deconstruction of the administrative state, as detailed in Project 2025.
Well, we just basically follow the money. We look at the president's executive orders, and we also just follow the money. So
deconstruct the federal government, crash the US and world economy, fall out with our allies, create total world chaos, carnage, and poverty, ignore climate change, ignore economists, social and political scientists, ignore expertise, medics, researchers, academics, all disappearing in favor of Donald Trump's whim.
What we're trying to do is get that number down to a much smaller figure, save money for the American taxpayer, stop money being spent on things that I think very few taxpayers would agree make sense. Transgender animal surgeries, or why are we spending money? Why are American tax dollars being spent on this?
If they really wanted to reduce costs, they would have started with the US military budget. But instead, they're about to raid Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, having sown the seed that there is fraud. But there isn't.
The way it's important in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. That's like the big one to eliminate, because that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $700 billion a year.
Trump's plan is to privatize all government services. They want to mine the treasury, stealing from you to enrich themselves. This isn't a warning. It's actually happening.
You giving up your other stuff? I mean, how are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty.
But there's no turning back, you're saying.
I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.